Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Gather round for news from Philadelphia. But first, we have special guests from Albany, Assemblywoman Sarah Clark and Senator Samara Brauch, who have special news to bring to us today.
Thank you, Town Crier. Hi, everyone. Pardon our minor interruption before we get back to the news from Philadelphia, because we have a special announcement. As we know, our beloved town supervisor here in Irondequoit will be leaving us soon to lead the charge at Rochester Works.
We did not want this moment and his last moment as supervisor for this glorious event to go unnoticed, and all his years of service here in Irondequoit. So we're here to present a proclamation, which I will very quickly read. Whereas it is my intent to recognize the work of individuals with a singular vision who effect enduring and positive change in their communities. And whereas Irondequoit Town Supervisor David A. Seeley is a lifelong citizen and public servant of the town of Irondequoit, New York. And whereas Supervisor Seeley dreamed he could make a difference in his community. With that theme, he served the town of Irondequoit as councilman from 2014 until he was unanimously appointed to Irondequoit Town Supervisor in 2016. And he is a member of Irondequoit Kiwanis, the Irondequoit Chamber of Commerce, and other civic organizations in the town. And whereas his vision has grown into the development of a new Department of Public Works for the town of Irondequoit, lacrosse and soccer fields at Camp Eastman, baseball fields at Town Hall, and a town-sponsored Senior Health and Wellness Expo, the Pocket Park on Wall Road, and the institution and promotion of neighborhood associations throughout the town, support for drug-free Irondequoit Together, development of Pathstone Senior Center at the former Medley Center, now known as Skyview on the Ridge, affordable housing at the former Wambach site, and introduction of new business to Irondequoit along East Ridge Road to bring resources into the community. And whereas the Irondequoit Community Center is cemented as a part of his legacy, he also coordinated the town's comprehensive response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which included drive-through food distributions, PPE distribution to residents and businesses, and partnering with the county to conduct COVID-19 testing. And whereas Supervisor Seeley has implemented diversity and inclusion in the town by overseeing the institution of the innovative first-time homeownership program, the Irondequoit Commission Advancing Racial Equity Organization, and diversity, equity, and inclusion training and policies at the town. And whereas Supervisor Seeley has striven to carry the message of servant leadership throughout his work with the town, now therefore be it proclaimed that we honor Supervisor David A. Seeley for his service to the town of New York and to all of New York State, and be it further proclaimed that a copy of this proclamation will be transmitted to the one and only David A. Seeley.
Thank you. We probably can now get on with the, it's humbling, but we can hopefully get on with the more important document, right? But thank you very much, Senator and Assembly Member.
She quickly has a little gift for you, too. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. And from the New York Senate, we'd also like to present you with not only this gorgeous photo, but also another certificate of recognition for all of your work in the town of Irondequoit. Thank you, Supervisor.
Gather round for news from Philadelphia. On July the 2nd, the Second Continental Congress unanimously passed a resolution introduced by Mr. Richard Henry Lee of the Colony of Virginia that these colonies are of right and ought to be free and independent states. On July the 4th, the Second Continental Congress unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence, principally drafted by Mr. Thomas Jefferson, also of the Colony of Virginia. Thus, we are no longer colonies of Great Britain, but are now and forever hereafter shall be known as the United States of America. Listen to the words of our Declaration of Independence.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's gods entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, and for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of alienation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. he has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments.
For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of the civilian nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, who've known rule of warfare is as undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitions for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be ruler of a freed people. Nor have we been wanting in our attention to our British kinspersons. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here.
We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We therefore, the representative of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and in the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states.
That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract allegiances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts, things that which independent states may of right do.
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This concludes the reading of the Declaration of Independence. You can applaud for America. So I just want to acknowledge, actually now County Executive Bello. He brought this tradition forth when he was supervisor, and it's something that's endured. And you know, even without the festival going on, it's nice to see a nice crowd here. We have stuff going on all day, obviously culminating with the fireworks at dusk tonight. The good news is there's a lot more space to watch the fireworks because we don't have our vendors, so we'll hopefully be able to do that. Hopefully the weather holds up. But on behalf of the town board, Deputy Supervisor Perticone, Councilwoman Patrina Freeman, Councilman Pete Wayner, and Councilwoman Kimmy Romeo, I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank our guests for taking some time, our honored guests for taking time to participate in these activities. And on behalf of the town, please have a very safe, healthy, weather-friendly rest of your Independence Day holiday. Thank you.